Hey friends, so welcome back to DBC Inc. Live. This is your Thursday night free PD. We are super excited to join you all today. We have Michael with us today, and I'm so excited for him to share with us some amazing tools and strategies that we can take and use right after the show, literally, in our classroom or no matter where your learning setting is. But before that, I would love to remind you that every single comment over in the comment section enters you to win a free book. And the book is Skyrocket Your Teacher Coaching. And it doesn't matter if you're not a coach. If you are working with humans with a heartbeat, you're having conversations with them, this book is going to help you. It's going to help you no matter what role that you're in. So keep that in mind. Go over in the comment section. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and where you're joining in, and maybe tell us something great that happened this week. I know that I always say that, but it's so fun to hear from you and hear the good things that are happening out in the world. So Michael, you are just an outstanding leader of coaches. You just do a plethora of things with educators. You're always helping us to become better communicators. But more than that, tell us exactly like, what do you do? What does your day-to-day look like? And introduce yourself more formally for my friends out here.
Great. Well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, my name is Michael Sonbert. I'm the founder of Skyrocket Educator Training. We train school leaders and teachers around the country on educational best practices, but more specifically, our leader coaching and teacher coaching models. What does a typical day look like? Interesting. I mean, pandemic times. We have some folks back at schools at this point, a lot of folks still virtual. So on any given day, I could be with, today's a good example. I was with leaders from Philadelphia, North Texas, and Milwaukee, and had a call with some folks from Indiana as well, and just supporting folks as they're doing, some of the most challenging work out there and walking through fire for kids and families. So it's great. I mean, I think we're seeing how resilient people really are during this time. So it's been amazing to be a part of that.
Very true. Very true. We are so excited that so many of you are joining in today. You're telling us who you are. Love that good news. Kristen, thanks for sharing. Super exciting. And Michael, you have been doing, this isn't a part of our live tonight, but you know me, I'm always game for talking about a little fitness. And
Yeah.
I've seen that you're working on the second round of 75 Hard. If you guys haven't heard of 75 Hard, it is hard.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about 75 Hard and why you decided to go a second round of it.
So 75 Hard is 75 straight days of 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes long. One of them has to be outdoors regardless of the weather. It is 10 pages of reading a day, drink a gallon of water a day, no cheat meals, no alcohol. And you have to stick to a diet. I'm doing intermittent fasting, so I'm eating in like most days it's a 4 to 5 hour window every day. But some days I go up to like 7 or 8 if I'm really hungry. Well, why am I doing it a second time? I did it at the end of last year. I think I did it the first time because when the pandemic hit, I just started like drinking and eating everything in sight. And so I said, I need to do something radical to get back in shape. And then a friend of mine, so I did it. It was awesome. And then a friend of mine said he wanted to do it. And so I said, I'll do it with you. So I'm now doing it for a second time. We're on day 60. I'm enjoying the last 15 days, but I will be excited for when it's over and I can eat a cheeseburger and drink a beer. But right now I'm in the thick of it. I ate my last meal today at 12 noon and won't eat again until tomorrow at 8 a.m.
It's so cool. And then if you miss it, is it true like if you miss a day,
Yeah.
you have to start all over, correct?
Yeah, it's not even a day. I mean, if you eat one M&M, you have to go back to day one, right? And so both my boys are born in October, and I did the first time I was doing this. I was doing it in October, and I'm cutting their birthday cake, and just out of habit, I licked the frosting off the knife and realized it was in my mouth. And I ran to the sink with frosting on my tongue and spat it out, and rinsed my mouth out, and I didn't count that as falling off the wagon, because I caught it in time. But it's that, and it's all. I mean, you're accountable to yourself. But yeah, I mean, I made a smoothie for my kids a couple of weeks ago, and I put chocolate syrup in it to make it a little sweeter, and forgot and almost took a sip, and that would have been a done deal. So yeah, it's no. I see Dave writing. It's intense. It is intense. It really is.
It is intense, but it's pretty powerful, and I think it helps you to create. I mean, a gallon of water a day. That's something I live by. I love it, and my body just needs it. Like, I feel like I can't even. I feel like I'm dying of a thirst. I always have my water nearby.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, and it's so good for you. So it's.
I'm trying to get like you with all the CrossFit. I'm trying to get like you with all the CrossFit you're doing. I see your videos and your posts. You're kicking butt.
It's so much fun. I love it. I love it. It's not quite as intense as 75 hard, but it is a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with it. So Skyrocket Your Teacher Coaching. I know that we've had you on here before, talked a little bit about the book, and we don't want to go too much into the book because we want to dive into what we're talking about tonight. But I know that some lucky winner over here is going to win one of these books. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to write the book and what you're hoping the readers gain from it.
Great. I mean, look, I wanted to provide a more concise and precise roadmap for leaders to improve teacher performance and ultimately impact student outcomes. Interestingly, I had a call with an instructional coach today who said, I have my meetings with teachers and I'm unable to get them to the focus area by questioning and asking them to kind of analyze the data themselves from their classroom. And she said, what's the answer? I said, the answer is Skyrocket, right? You asked, why did I write the book? I wrote the book because I saw hundreds and hundreds of school leaders having what we consider to be meandering conversations about instruction, where they had an opportunity to really improve teacher practice, but instead defaulted to more of a probing approach and more of like a, kind of like a what do you think type approach. And not that teachers aren't incredibly smart, because of course they are. They wouldn't do the work if they're not. But we said, why are we hiding the ball from teachers? Why aren't we just saying, here's what instructional excellence in our school looks like. I'm going to collect data toward that. I'm going to give you feedback, teacher, on your glows, the stuff you're knocking out of the park. I'm then going to give you feedback on your grows. And I'm going to provide precise steps for us to get better. And so I created the framework we use, and so obviously started the company. And I wanted to provide a quicker way to get from point A to point B than currently exists in the world of K-12 ed.
I love it. And it's a great guide. Like I said earlier, if you work with anyone where you're providing some type of communication, which hopefully that's every job imaginable, this tool will be just a great guide for you to take a conversation and create a productive conversation out of it. Not just a back and forth, but like, how do we get to the next step? And then I'm gonna come back and check and see how this is going. What are our steps to get there? So, Michael, I know we jumped in here and we had planned to talk a little bit about some communication, right? Some questioning techniques to engage all students, I think was the topic you had listed. So let's dive into that.
Yeah. Well, what I want to talk about is something that is playing out in every single school everywhere, and schools for the folks who are hopping on. We see a bunch of the comments. This is happening in your schools, and so it's not bad. But there's a more effective way to do this thing, and this is also simple. What I'm about to share, and so the question for you to ask school leaders who aren't here or teachers at any given moment in the lesson is, what are students supposed to be doing right now? And the question is that, but the answer should be something observable. And so what's often happening in classrooms is teachers are saying things that sound like, who can tell me? Or who knows? who remembers, right? Who can tell me what we worked on yesterday? Who knows the causes of World War II? Who remembers how to multiply fractions? What questions like this do is they lead to one student answering, one student raising a hand, maybe a student or two calling out. They rarely lead to deep engagement across the class. And so to the question I just asked a moment ago, what are students supposed to be doing right now? There's got to be an all-student engagement activity there so that the teacher can observe and see who's with them and who's not. But B, and probably more importantly, is that students are connected to the content. And so if I'm asking questions that sound like, who can tell me? And student Tara raises her hand and I call on her, great, I've just found out what Tara knows, but I don't know what the other 26 students know at this point. And I might ask a question again, who can tell me, who remembers? And Tara goes again. You've seen this, Tara, and our viewers tonight have seen this play out where it's like, I know the teacher says, I know Tara knows, somebody else tell me, somebody else.
I feel like I'm back in elementary.
Right. And so, but the problem is that we're not providing a space for all the other students. Maybe Tara's a really fast processor. Maybe she's really loves the content or really knows this content well. And so there's an impact there. First of all, Tara keeps answering. As the teacher, I don't know what other students know. I'm getting frustrated. If I'm a student in that class who's less vocal or maybe just slower processor, I'm feeling like there's not necessarily a place for me in this class, right? And so what happens is that if classrooms go on like this, we've connected with potentially a handful of students over the larger group. And so the fix here, and this is simple, and everybody who's about to hear this is going to be like, oh yeah. And I'm sure that some folks do this, but this is a simple thing, but many teachers are not doing it, and many leaders and coaches are not coaching people to do it. Instead of who remembers, a direction that sounds like this. Okay, friends, I'm going to ask everybody right now. Let's take 1 minute. I want you to jot down 2 things that you remember from yesterday's lesson. Now we've given all students a chance to engage in writing. Even if they're little and they're not quite writing it, you can say, everybody put your finger on your brain. I want everybody to think of 2 things you remember from yesterday's lesson. And while we know that you're not going to necessarily get 30 kindergartners to come up with 2, you're at least sending the message that this is something that we're all thinking on. So, but go back to kids older, first grade and older. I want everybody to jot down 2 things they remember from yesterday's lesson. We've now gotten all kids to engage, or we can actually see who's not. We can now call on students. They've now been set up for success because they're able to, because they've had time to think on this. And so instead of going to student Tara, who just happens to raise her hand or calls out the answers, that's right, Melissa, exactly. Then we get all kids, right? More kids are engaged, which is great for engagement, but it's also better for learning. We now have more kids with us throughout the course of the lesson. And so think about that piece. What are kids supposed to be doing right now? And the answer is not nothing while Tara answers, right? We've got to get all kids to engage here.
I love it, and it's so simple too. And I bet you over here in the comments have a lot of ideas for how you make this happen in your classroom. So if you have some ideas for how you engage everyone with one question, drop them over in the comments. We'd love to hear what you do and how you make it happen. You know, I've seen this too with technology, using technology as the place for putting those ideas. So
that's right.
Padlet, Pear Deck, there's so many ways that you could have everyone. So if we're teaching virtual, I could have everyone type in the 2 things. And then all the words make a word cloud, or, you know, all the words are listed up on the board, or they just have them all over in the comments. And so everybody can see what other people are saying. And so there's so many different ways, like you said, to have everyone engage. But more than that, everyone feels like they have a voice too. And that, especially when using technology, because all the answers are up there, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't think before.
That's right. And I think the piece around all students having a voice makes a ton of sense. You know, we can get more nuanced here too, right? And so like the who can tell me revise to everybody take 1 minute and write. Let's get even more nuanced. Every person on this call right now has either done this, I know I have, or they've seen their teachers do it, and it looks like this. Hey, friends, I'm going to read from the book. Follow along with me, right? Or Tara's going to read the question. Everybody's listening to this. This is a great opportunity. Even if we want kids, certainly I would suggest here that the students do the reading, and that it's not just one person or the teacher. But if that's what the teacher's going for in that moment, let's have all students do some sort of, even if it's low-level annotation, right? If they're following along with their finger, that's one thing, if that's an intentional move. But very often we're in classes, teachers reading or one student's reading, we say, hey, what are other students supposed to be doing right now? And the teacher will say something like, oh, they're following along. But very often they're not. You can tell because they're not necessarily on the right page, or they're not all flipping the page at the same time. So even a low-level annotation throughout that. So, hey, friends, Tara's going to read for us. She's going to read the next couple of pages. I want everybody to annotate for any new characters we see, the setting, or and unfamiliar words, right? And of course, those annotation routines have to be built in. But again, to the question, what are students supposed to be doing right now? It's got to be something observable. If it's just following along with my eyes, there's no way for me to know what students are with me. There's no way to ensure that all students are learning in that scenario.
Yeah, and one thing too, and that I think works really well with that is, if you are having to do read alouds, giving kids love Post-it notes. They love them almost as teachers. So if you're face to face and you have an opportunity to give everyone 3 sticky notes, that always worked really well for me for the section that I had to read out loud. It's usually like a short amount of time that we did out loud reading, but they had to either, if they couldn't write it out, they had to mark the piece that resonated with them and why while I was reading, or I wanted them to kind of write out like their what they were thinking. Most of the time the kids would mark all the places, then they would go back. I would give them a few minutes to go back and say why that piece resonated with them. They could write it on the sticky note. Then the greatest thing is, like, they went to PE, and then I could literally just scan the room of sticky notes on their books and see where we were on our collective reading piece. So that's just another way, like in person, you can make that happen. You could also have that. So if you're in Zoom and you're doing online learning, you do the same thing. Whatever piece resonates with you, it's not interrupting me. I want you to put it over in the chat why that's resonating with you.
That's right.
And so giving them an opportunity to talk and let them know that's not interrupting me. If you're going off on a sidebar conversation, that's a different story. But if you're oh my goodness, my grandpa took me fishing the other day. This so reminds me of the fishing that we did, like whatever. But if it connects to the text, I'm game for it. Put it over there. And that's where you're building those little anchors for them, and giving them all a chance to speak. I like it.
And what it solves for in multiple things, but if you've ever seen this or experienced this, which is teacher reads for a few pages, kids don't have a task, and the teacher comes back and asks a question, and it can sometimes feel like pulling teeth, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, come on, and sometimes teachers get frustrated. Weren't you paying attention? Or they start to say, I know it's Friday, or I know it's Monday, or I know it's the morning, I know it's the afternoon, but the students haven't been set up for success in that scenario. To your point of the Post-it notes, not only do I as the teacher know what kids know at this point because I see what they're writing, I know who's engaged and who's not. I can check on those students during independent work time. But I'm also, when I come back, students are going to have that much more to share. It's going to be that much more of a robust conversation because I'm not just counting on the student who happened to have heard the thing I read, and it happens to line up with the question that I've asked. And so it really is a game changer in terms of student engagement.
Well, you're right. And two, like the greatest thing about the Post-it notes, if you have the big basil readers, I don't even know if people have those anymore, but we had the big basil readers. But when they would stick those Post-it notes in, they left them in until we finished the story. So when we finished the story, they could go back to the first piece and see where all those pieces that they were connecting, all those Post-it notes. And it, like I said, it creates a little anchor. So when they go back and see, why did I stick that there? Oh, I stuck that there because, and they see their little writing or their drawing or their sketch note that they created. And so it's just a great way for them to remember start to finish what they were reading. And it all starts with not having Tara raise her hand for every single question, and they didn't have an opportunity to want to interact with the text.
Yeah, I mean, Tara, you're exactly right, and this goes for anything in class. I was in a class today virtually. Teacher showed a movie clip, and it was a great clip, but there was no measurable task for kids on the front end. They didn't have anything to do except watch the video. So now the video ends, and the teacher's trying to like have them recall information from the video, asking questions. She's getting frustrated. Kids are like, they're frustrated. Same thing. Friends, we're going to watch this video. It's 4 minutes long. I want you to look for X, Y, and Z and jot that down during the video, right? Or I want you to look for the answer to this question in the video, right? These are the key things I want you to look for. And then kids have a measurable, observable task during that piece. They come back, teachers more easily able to engage students, and kids are more connected to the content. Why waste an amazing video on students who not on students, but like on during a time period when you haven't asked students to fully engage in it, right? It's like, you know, you go to a Bruce Springsteen concert and you spend the whole time at the coat check, right? Like, no, like go check, like engage with this thing, like engage deeply. And it was a missed opportunity today. And so really going back to that question, teachers should ask themselves this, leaders should ask teachers this, what should students be doing right now? And think of observable things, not following along, not listening, but things like writing, annotating. Even, Tara, when a teacher's working with one student in a classroom, this happens often. I'm working with student Tara, 27 other students are in, they're doing their own thing, right? Some are looking around the room, some are like, hey, friends, I'm working with Tara on this. I want everybody to track Tara. I want you to give a thumbs up if you agree with what Tara's saying, a fist if you have something additional to add, right? And so like now everybody's on the hook for listening to Tara as she's sharing, right? I'm actually able to scan while that's happening. Hold on, Tara, pause that thought. Friends, I want to make sure everybody's tracking Tara at this point. Remember, you're giving thumbs up if you agree, fist if you have something to add. I'm coming to somebody right after this to hear your thoughts as well, right? And so Tara finishes her piece, and I say, Dave Burgess, hop on the mic. You had a fist up. What did you have to add to what Tara said? Friends, make sure you're tracking Dave. Thumbs up if you agree, fist if you have something to add. Dave, great. And now I'm not summarizing what Dave said every time, right? Dave shares his thing. I say, Shelly, hop on the mic. You had a thumbs up. What about what Dave said did you agree with, right? And now we are having versus Tara shares. I go to Dave. Dave has no idea what Tara said, right? They haven't been actually. And so even stuff, this is not high level engagement, right? This is low level engagement to keep kids connected to the content, to make sure that they are with the teacher and learning as much as possible throughout the lesson.
I love it. I think, you know, there's so many ways we can do just that by just what Linda said over in the comments, just prepping to engage the kids. It's so important. Right. You know, when they know ahead of time what they're supposed to do, and it's not like it's so prescribed. I mean, you're saying you can say agree, or I have something to add. Like I disagree with what's happening. Like I have a voice here. But I think some of this, Michael, I feel like some of it stems from maybe how we did school when we were young. Right. You know, we had to listen to a lecture. You did not get to speak or talk or have your own opinions at that point. And when you got done, you had a worksheet that you had to fill in. It was a perfect, like, this is the right answer. And you got a grade with a red number over another red number. And so I think sometimes we get into this mindset, maybe not always, but there are times where, you know, you're just up in the front. You're like, okay, everybody needs to be quiet. I'm talking. But the truth is, why don't we just give them something they need to be doing while I'm talking? It engages them with the content. Because the more we know, the more senses that we engage during the delivery of the content, the more chances of them retaining that memory. That content in their working memory or later in their long-term memory. So I love these ideas. I think they're fantastic. And some of you have listed some pretty cool stuff over here. I love this when you see like the Ed puzzle. It's great for videos. It's true. If you have a short video or even a longer one, you can, with Ed puzzle, you can put questions in the middle of the video. So you can have them actually, the video will stop and then they have to answer the question before they can move on. This is really great for virtual learning. So if you're not familiar with Edpuzzle, I totally recommend it. There's some other tech tools that I've seen some people putting over here. Creative Sandbox solutions. I saw Nearpod, Answer Garden. I've used Mentimeter, but I've not used Answer Garden, but with adults. So if you're an admin listening to this, this works for us too. If we're doing staff meeting and we're just having everybody sit there and listen, and we have no reason for them to engage, it's the same way. I mean, adults want to engage too. So maybe we can think of ways we can model this with our staff meetings and our professional development, and then the teachers and the staff can then take it back to their classroom based off of what they did with us. So yes, I'm loving all these ideas. Great ideas.
I'm just checking out the chat now. Folks are blowing this chat up with
I'm telling you,
great resources. This is awesome.
So much fun. And Tim, you said you've not heard of Edpuzzle, or you were asking about Answer Garden earlier. So if someone could jump over and help Tim out, he's on the YouTube side, but maybe we can drop some comments over in the comment section for Tim so he can check them out for Edpuzzle and also Answer Garden.
Tara, can I just speak to one? Can I speak to one? There's a question in the chat that says, would a think, pair, share work as well for the thing we're talking about here? And it is a great option. Turn and talk and things like that. The potential pitfall there is that in that one-on-one conversation, if we don't give students an opportunity to write first, I may turn to Tara. Tara knows the content inside and out. She's got a big personality. She's super confident. I may be the opposite. And so now Tara's sharing, and I just kind of like, I haven't collected my thoughts. I haven't had opportunity to actually put pen to paper and say, this is what I think on this subject. I may not have an equal voice in that conversation. And so absolutely turn and talk, think, pair, shares, things like this. We always coach leaders and teachers to have students write first so that they are more prepared for those conversations and they have more direction. Years ago, teacher in a classroom, they were talking about, said, all right, I want everybody to turn to your neighbor and talk about how you got to school today. And we sat there and we took, one student turned to one, he said, bus. The other student said, bus. And then they just sat there, right? And because there was first of all, it's not a great question, but there should have been more that kids had to write and prepare. How'd you get to school today? And is that the best way for you to get to school? Write down your thoughts, be prepared to share with your partner. You're then going to ask your partner one question about what they wrote. Be prepared to share out when we come back what your partner said, right? And things like that get just more intentional about the work.
So true. I think it works good for all the different things we were talking about too, Michael. So Tim, if you were having them use the Post-it notes as they were watching the video, and or as they were reading a piece and they were writing some things down, then afterward, you could have them share at least one thing that they wrote down in a think, pair, share. But they've had the teacher reading out loud. They've been thinking about it. They marked their place. They wrote some things down. Then I feel like they're more prepared to at least share one. If they have 3 Post-it notes, they only have to share one idea that they wrote down. So it kind of takes off the pressure too, especially of people that aren't like me and they're just quick to say something. Then they have an opportunity to kind of collect what they're going to say.
Tara, one of the hallmarks of our book, and because you've read it, but is around real-time coaching. If folks are unfamiliar, it's the idea that a leader would be in a teacher's classroom, hop on the mic if it's virtual, interject if it's brick and mortar, and say, hey, and they want to give some feedback right in the moment. If this is something you want to engage in, once this is normed in your school, this is the perfect place to provide real-time coaching. Tara gives a direction. She says, who can tell me what we worked on yesterday? I interject. I say, excuse me, Miss Martin, can we ask all students to take 1 minute to jot down 2 things they remember from yesterday's lesson? She says, thank you so much, Mr. Sonbert. Students, let's take a minute to jot down 2 things we remember from yesterday's lesson. Boom, right? Ready, set, go. And it changes that. It's a really easy way. It's kind of like an easy on-ramp for folks who are like, real-time coaching feels a little weird and like, it's uncomfortable. Is it going to make teachers uncomfortable? By the way, if that's what you think, if that's like your belief, definitely check out my book because I talk all about that. And like, there's a right way to deliver real-time coaching, and there's definitely some wrong ways. So don't do that. But this is a great example of just a really easy on ramp to say, excuse me, Miss Martin, can we ask all students to annotate for the setting and some characters as you're reading? Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sonbert. Students, let's do this thing. And it's a great way to really affect change for kids in the moment versus, the email that you send later that day, 2 days later, 3 days later, or whatever it is.
And you don't have another read aloud until the next story and you forget it again.
Right. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly right.
Exactly. And if it's something like your school is really working on, we're working on all engagement. We're working on, that is our mission. That is our goal. And so I think it's perfect for the coach or the teacher to kind of say, oops, hey, wait a second.
Yeah.
And
you have
that kind of relationship with your staff and teachers, they get it. There's like, okay, oh yeah, this is great. Yeah, this is much better. Let's try this instead. So
once it's normed and once everybody's like on board. Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
It's all about that relationship and that culture, right? So Michael, these are just amazing ideas. I'm super excited to hear if some of you take these back to your classroom or to your staff and try it with them. It's just a shift in questioning and a shift in responsibility of what the others will be doing while the content is being delivered. And so I would love to hear if you try some of these, tech tools that our awesome audience has provided over here in the comments. Be sure and tag us. And if they want to tag you, Michael, where can they find you on social media?
So at Michael Sonbert, at Michael Carey Sonbert on Twitter, and then We Will Skyrocket at Twitter, and then Michael.Carey.Sonbert at Instagram. So say hello, send me a message, tell us what you're working on. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, most definitely. And be sure and pick up the book. We will leave the comments open usually on Friday at some point. I used to say 8 a.m., but I just don't even put those kind of restrictions anymore. Friday at some point, depending on my meetings, I will be choosing one winner over in the comment section to win Skyrocket Your Teacher Coaching. And so you do want to get your comments over in the comment section before tomorrow at some point. And if you're watching this on the playback, please do share with us what you're loving and what you still have to add, what you like and what you still want to add to this conversation over in the comments. So thank you so much for joining us again. Next Thursday, same place, same time, different guest. And Michael, thanks for being on the show tonight.
Thanks, Tara. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody, for weighing in. I appreciate it. And look forward to hearing from you soon.
Yes. See you later, everyone. Bye.